everyone. Thank you for staying with us, and thank you for turning up. Hope I've had a great day so far. Everyone enjoyed? Fab. So, those of you that don't know, my name's Natalie Whipday. I'm the Director of Operations at the Boys Brigade and the lead for England and Wales. So, we'll do the boring bit first, but that role is very much about delivering all the operational aspects of the charity, and a huge part of that is supporting our volunteers and equipping them to do the job that they do. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Boys Brigade, but don't worry, I will not bore you with that. That's just where the majority of my experience comes from, and we can link it in. But although I'm talking about Boys Brigade and Girls Association, it should still resonate with yourselves from a church capacity. So if you don't know about Boys Brigade and Girls Association, we're a completely membership organisation. We are 100% reliant on our volunteers at all levels. So from local level right up to our strategy and how we deliver what we do is all down to volunteers. So we currently work with just under 10,000 volunteers in the UK. And we shortly due to celebrate our 140th anniversary. So we've had some time, but things have evolved since then, quite a lot I would say. So in my spare time, when I'm not working, I'm a volunteer in my local church and my BB company. My church is based in inner city Salford, and it is a city in Manchester, but I would say I'm Salfordian, not Mancunian. So we're very blessed at my church, and we have fantastic facilities. We are an LLP, so an Anglican Methodist church. We have a huge community centre, we have sports hall, so we are very lucky. But with that also brings the added challenges, as we run 24/7 as a community centre. So that means there's many different charities, hundreds of people coming through as the week. Although everyone's there with the same mission of trying to help the community, that can bring added challenges because each individual group see their group's needs. So managing that, and I've had the pleasure of being part of the management group of volunteers trying to ensure that runs smoothly. I've been heavily involved. Now when I say company, that is probably a bit of Boys Brigade talk. A company is a group. So the group that meets here, First Swansea East Side, we refer to that as a company, but it basically is the church youth group. So I've been involved in my company for 25 years. Please tell me you don't think I'm that old, but so the journey commenced in the year 2000 when a friend at school said, "My mum and dad run this thing, it's in a church, but it's quite good. And for the millennium, they were offering millennium volunteers, and you got a £50 HMV voucher if you did 2,000 hours volunteering." So that's what I signed up for at 15. Not being brought up in a church background, occasionally went with my grandma, but that was my first experience. So at 15, I went along to volunteer at the local group, and I'm still there now. So, some of you, we are one of the largest Christian youth organisations, and our aim is to provide opportunities and experiences for children, young people, within a nurturing environment rooted in the Christian faith. However, the majority of young people we're working with in 2023 are possibly unchurched. So it will be a mix. If there is youth within the church, they're encouraged to come along, but the majority of them will be unchurched. We aim to inspire children and young people to live their life to the fullest sense, including providing them with opportunities to explore their faith, but most importantly, we work together in partnership with churches. So you wouldn't have a Boys Brigade group or Girls Association group without it being part of the church. So it's very much in partnership. You'll see on the screen here, we've recently re-looked at our values, of what the values are and what the vision are. So up there you've got the values are very much about faith. We are not a Christian organisation, we're rooted in the faith, but we work with young people of all faiths and none. Caring and trusting. I'll be honest, when Rachel asked me to do this session, I was like, well, there's no magic wand of how we inspire and attract volunteers. However, I hope from this session we're going to share together and to think about volunteering in a different way. So our aims for today are very much, we are going to inspire, I'm going to inspire you to think about volunteering in a different way. We're going to do this by looking at some research post-pandemic of why people volunteer, the benefits and the impact, and we're also going to look at volunteer retention and what support we actually provide to volunteers, and the gifts and gets from volunteering through the volunteer's eyes. As with anything, there are a lot of benefits from volunteering, and I hope we can all shout them aloud. As an organisation, for 2023, following the pandemic, a lot of our leaders went well above and beyond in their communities, in their companies. Some were doing 3, 4, lots of virtual sessions a week to stay engaged with their young people. So for the 140th anniversary, our theme is very much how we thank and recognise our volunteers. Because historically, as an organisation, you didn't get a certificate until you'd done 20 years. You used to do 20 years and then you got bronze. And so it was very much we're competing with lots of other volunteering opportunities, and we're saying, well, until you've done 20 years, we're not going to give you a certificate. So we have spent quite a lot of time focusing on the quality of what we offer, but making the role of a volunteer leader in the Boys Brigade as easy as possible. So what type of things do volunteers want to enable them to do the job? And a lot of them are very busy. They're busy already in the churches, they're busy in their own lives, they're busy in their careers. So how can we make it a simpler job so that they continue doing what they do? In October, we had a great opportunity to bring together our young leaders. So the journey of the Boys Brigade is very much about how we install in the older age groups leadership skills for life, and then to bring them, hopefully, to pass the baton on, to allow them that we've equipped them with skills and they're going to give back in their companies. And that's worked very, very well for a number of years, but as the world changes, a lot will now go off and do different jobs, and go further away and are not at home, and they don't stay. So we were seeing a disconnect between our 18 and 25-year-olds in that they were feeling if they went off, they've lost that connection. So in October, slightly delayed because of COVID, we launched our Young Leaders Network. So that network, we extended it to 18 to 27-year-olds, and there's probably about 900 across England and Wales. And it was bringing them about what do we need to do to keep more of their age group retained? What have they benefited from, and what are their barriers? And the feedback, they were very honest. It was a whole weekend, and it was very much of, well, we can't give up the time. If my leaders feel, well, if I'm not there every week, it's not enough. And they don't want to, it's too much. What do I get out of it? And they were very raw, they were very honest around, we want to, but. So it's about us, how can we change, rebut some of them buts? How can we still keep them involved? And a piece of work they set to do in October was, we'd love to do a PR piece with teenagers around why they come and what they think the barriers are. And one young lad there was like, look, I'm really proud of everything I've done, but I wouldn't walk there in my BB uniform because I didn't want people to know. And we need to break down some of their barriers as to why I go and what we offer. So the young leaders did some workshops with teenagers across different areas about what the benefits and barriers are. And I'm going to show us now a video. It is in a Boys Brigade context, but I think it will still resonate with you. But this was, they did focus sessions of discussion with the young leaders, and then they were interviewed, but these are all in their own words. But I think this is very similar to the volunteer journey, and the barriers and the benefits are quite similar. It will also give you a bit of an understanding of what we do as an organisation. So we'll watch this video and then we'll come back.
Here at Boys Brigade, we have faith in young people. and provide them with opportunities to learn, grow and discover in a safe, fun and caring environment. We inspire children and young people while challenging them to live their lives to the fullest sense. The Boys Brigade is a family which is rooted in Christian faith, however you don't have to be religious to attend. An average session there's so many different activities that we try and do, and we make sure we try and cater to a lot of different young people, so everyone's got different interests. So some nights it might be more debate-based and discussion-based, or we might do quizzes, we often do some arts and crafts, and then we always kind of finish with sports, and that could be something really intense like football or volleyball, or actually for those that are less sporty, we try and do things like pool and table tennis and chess.
My favourite activities are sports, art and theatre dancing.
The activity I best remember from Boys Brigade was climbing a few years ago, where I was struggling to get to the top of this wall outside, and I could just hear everyone telling me, giving me instructions, being supportive and helping me to the top.
Probably either when we all went to Cracky Trail, we were really young and we all got so muddy and that was so much fun. BB camp, I've only been once, but it was probably one of the best things I've done. You go and you meet new people and you basically explore different skills and do different activities. And it's just things you wouldn't think you would do.
The skills we teach at Boys Brigade is stuff like communication, how to socialise, how to make friends. Also life skills, like you can do stuff like first aid, you can go out and do things that you wouldn't normally get to do.
They've taught me how to kayak, they've taught me how to do archery, and they've also taught me how to be able to communicate to different people. We've learned how to cook, we've also learned life lessons, like recently we've gone to the food bank, helped them out, we've packaged stuff up and we've learned about what people's struggles are and how the food bank helps them.
I thought at first it was just games and some fun, but then I realised there's also an academic side to it.
Also improving social skills and stepping out your comfort zone.
When I first started coming, I was I'd get annoyed at every other thing, yeah. But now I'm just sort of chill.
Well, I didn't like socialising with people before I came here, so I just had a small friend group, but then I've learned how to socialise and to adapt.
Boys Brigade is just such a friendly and welcoming place.
My friends come to the Boys Brigade who are in some of my classes, some are in my form at school, and although we are close, BB's just brought us so much closer. A lot of friends are really welcoming, really easy to talk to, and are really nice no matter what. It's just people that I never thought I'd actually get to know, so people that I didn't know existed before Boys Brigade, but then become really close with them.
The leaders have helped me to grow and know other people, and now I know them properly, and they're companions that I can just trust and go to if I need them.
The leaders at Boys Brigade are very welcoming, and whenever you have a problem you can go and speak to them, it'll get sorted. I like the leaders, they're really funny.
The leaders are just really happy and always making you feel you belong here.
Then you've got people who are into arts and crafts, people who are into debates, people who are into sports. We've got all types of people, it's very diverse.
This BB has welcomed girls into the society, and it's really made a big impact.
People should come to Boys Brigade because it's not just a religious thing where you have to have a religion. You can come here because you enjoy it, you want to meet new people, you want to learn different things, different skills.
I think BB and GA are all about new starts and new beginnings.
If someone was thinking of joining Boys Brigade for the first time, I would tell them just to do it. You can't lose anything on trying.
Just get stuck in because everyone's welcoming, everyone appreciates everyone.
I would definitely recommend coming to BB, it's so much fun and you'll just make so many new friends.
Boys Brigade has been a major part of my life. I've met some of my most closest friends here, my family basically.
So I think just give it a go. I think it's a really great opportunity to not only develop your own skills, but give back to the community that you're part of. For me, it's really important that it's a safe environment for them to learn, grow, and discover about themselves, about their faith, and just who they want to be. And hopefully we can steer them in the right direction and equip them for the real world.
So I apologise that was very BB heavy, but I think it's when they talk about their leaders and their volunteers, you can see the light in their face about the impact. So that, to me, summarises why do we volunteer, because you might have a Boys Brigade group, but you're impacting your community through youth work in the very same way. So I'm going to take a bit from Rick and say, talk to your neighbour, and that what does volunteering mean to you? So the young people there were saying how they feel about their leaders and what Boys Brigade means to them. But to you, what does volunteering mean to you? And many of you might be employed or volunteers yourself. So if we have 2 minutes just to talk to the person next to you about what do you think volunteering means to you.
I agree to donate to God. God guidance. Yeah, that's where it changed. It's scouts and guides.
Come over to some of the groups that are chatting, so just because we're in that time going through the day. So volunteering to you ladies.
Yeah, we're three of us volunteer. Give the children a safe space to grow and learn. You know, where they're not without any pressure in school or no pressure, it's all just that, you know, but just let them enjoy it and develop. Not putting pressure on them, you know, to come to church. It's on there, they want to, and try and encourage that aspect of it.
So the feedback there is very much about it's a safe place and it's somewhere. Do you mind me not having can you hear me without the microphone? It's a safe place, they're there because they want to be there, and so that's something about volunteering for you, is they want, the young people want to be there, it's not school. What about this group?
Music so much, we feel like supportive people who build up the community. It's not easy job actually, and it's that idea of serving. I can talk on videos again. It is that idea of giving back. You as you get older, you realise how much you've been given, and volunteering is sort of my way of saying, here's my bit back in, and I get a lot of joy out of watching the children enjoying themselves.
Great.
That's where it comes from.
Well, I'll come back to the others shortly, but I think what we are very lucky at as an organisation is that we have there's an allegiance. So, and that might be the same with a church. You know, you've gone there, the family have come through, you've seen the benefits. So we have quite a loyal group of volunteers who, well, this is just what I do, it's me giving back. I think one of the biggest challenges, and this is very much the same in the church, and I see it in mine, we often rely on the same people to volunteer in every single capacity. So we get, and it happens in Boys Brigade, we see a young person who we think, oh, these are great, they do something, it's like, right, what else can we get them to do? We'll get them on this committee, we'll get them running this camp, and we then get burnout. And I think that's one of the big things, is because we don't often like saying no. So then we get to that point where we put so much on a volunteer that they're either at breaking point and they walk away, or we end up then dealing with conflict. So I think some of the positives, I think volunteering can be a real leveller for individuals. It often gives opportunities that then we might not necessarily get in the workplace. I think you then meet more people from all different walks of life, because it's a different aspect to what your work is. And you're not only giving back, but you're making the impact, and often creating lifelong friends who are also such a big support. And certainly for me, I work for Boys Brigade and then I volunteer on a Monday, but that Monday is so much different. I don't feel like I'm going to work. because it's sometimes after a stressful day, it's just what I need to get there. So we've got the next slide is about an agreement line, and we would normally get in a line, we go to one end to the other, but we'll change it slightly. What we'll do is, if you agree, I want you to stand up if you're able. Or put your hand up if you're not. If you disagree, sat down, hand down. But these are just some statements that I want us to think about, especially in the church context. Volunteering is as much about what you get out of it as to what you give. Agree or disagree? So I think everybody agrees with that. That's a good one. Volunteering within my church. A volunteer within my church should have a strong commitment to the Christian faith. Oh, to look the face because everyone's agreeing. So I think that is something we come across quite a bit in Boys Brigade, where historically, well, it's not historically, it still happens now. If you want to volunteer within a group, you can apply to be a volunteer, but the church appoints you as a volunteer. And there's some denominations or some churches where, well, we will only appoint you as a volunteer if you attend church on a Sunday and you have a strong commitment to faith. And in my role, I deal with a lot of the unfortunate, when there is conflict and complaints. And one of the biggest issues has been when we're having to deal with people who like, well, we've got this volunteer and the church are not agreeable because they're not committed to the faith. And I am very much passionate about, we are there to disciple our fellow volunteers as well as ourselves. And I have definitely had personal experience of where we've brought a volunteer in, she's like, oh, I won't be able to do any of the prayer bits, and we've had some really challenging discussions, and now she's an integral part of our church leadership team. And if we'd have said no to her, she wouldn't have gone on that journey herself. Last one, a measure of success is how many children, young people and volunteers come to church on a Sunday. I think I'm probably preaching to the converted. Do we agree? And that's something that is a culture of change we does in an organisation, where we have groups who think, well, if you don't come to church on a Sunday, we're not doing the work we need to do. So it's changing that. You're already converted on that. So we're going to spend some time now looking at some recent research. So over the past 4 years, the world, we've obviously had unprecedented times. And in many ways, people have returned to pre-pandemic life in a very different way. And we're still seeing the repercussions of lockdown and the events around cost of living, the external events with the widening conflict around the world, and in some sense the deepening societal need for some of the most marginalised groups, and we see that very much in the communities that we serve. So there's a recent research called a survey called Time Well Spent, and this comes from NVCO, which is like, they support lots of different volunteers or organisations, and they did a huge research piece in 2018, and they've done sort of some further research over the last 12 months in 2022 to see how much of a change from the research in 2018 to 22 and the impact of those changes. So the report was only actually, it's hot off the press because it was formally launched on the 27th of June. But we're just going to look at what some of the outlined information within the report and the important points. So there's signs of decline in volunteering. Not a huge amount, it's down from 23% to 16%. Now we've certainly, when I said we're just under 10,000 volunteers, that was 13,000 volunteers pre-pandemic. So I think it has, some people have thought that this is my time to hang up the boots. I think people had more time at home and realised in some cases what they were missing. Volunteer satisfaction is slightly lower. However, the vast majority of volunteers that were surveyed have a positive experience, with 92% saying that they were either very or fairly satisfied with their experiences. There's challenges still around diversity and inclusion. It's very similar people who are volunteering. Volunteering virtually. This is a new one. We wouldn't have known this in 2018 the same, but virtual volunteering is here to stay. So volunteering online or over the phone is now the third most common place to volunteer. And signs are saying that this does not impact on the volunteer experience. So volunteers are saying they still feel they're making that impact and they still have the impact themselves. Volunteer motivations have not changed. That's one thing that stays the same. So top motivation in 2018 and 2022 was wanting to improve things or help people, and that's some of the things we discussed just then. Recent volunteers say that making a difference is the key reason they're likely to continue. Important to remember core motivation when we're looking at recruiting volunteers, as asking the question, 1 in 5, 90% of people who had never volunteered in the past 12 months said it was because they'd never been asked. Continuing on to some of the other findings, practical barriers that need to be addressed. So some of these were highlighted in 18 and they've come back now. So expenses, especially the cost of living, it's notable that a lot of volunteers feel that's a barrier, that they feel have they got the extra, are they able to fund the extra costs. Thinking it involves more time, so an understanding of not knowing how much it actually takes. And this is something we've definitely done at my church, where we had a lot of volunteers, but they were all there at the same time and nobody really knew what they were doing. And that's not because there wasn't great people, it was like there was no coordination. And what we've been able to do is people don't want too much of like, oh, you need to do this time, this is your shift, but more having the general of, right, what can you do? So there's a lady who comes to my group on a Tuesday, she gets there and she does 15 minutes of going around with a truck trolley, serves truck and then go home, because she has to be home for Ramadan. Now, previously, like, we can only give half an hour, but she comes, it's all set up, it's something that we don't have to worry about. She goes around with a trolley, every age group has their name on a bag, they do the tuck, at the end of the night we know exactly where it is and she's gone. But to her, that is what she does. Where she's going, what do you want me to do? Shall I have? And there's 5 of us trying to do the tuck. So simple little changes are being clear around, well, if you've only got half an hour, what could we do in that half an hour? And that is one thing we've definitely seen with young leaders. If they can only do a certain part, that's fine, but we just need to have a conversation. So I think a big thing around not understanding what's involved. I think we're lucky and blessed in Boys Brigade, most of it is what is on the tin. The complications come when it's committee roles and there's too many people on the committees. And it's like, well, where if you know I'm coming, I'm doing my hour, I'm running my session, I'm doing this activity and doing that, it's clear. The challenges with volunteers most definitely come. We have volunteers who come in every day at our community centre, just to tidy around to welcome people, but it's coordinating that and being clear to them, this is what you do. The last one, the opportunities didn't match their skills. Interest or previous experience. Now, I had a volunteer who came to my group who worked in corporate finance and was wanting to adopt. And he was like, he's been to church, and he's like, they're saying for us to adopt I need some involvement with children. He said, I don't even know if I like children. I said, well, maybe you should come along and see actually if you like them before you adopt. And he came in, and that first night he was like, rabbits in the headlights, what have I signed up for, how many weeks have I got to do this? They just run, I thought, that's not even a chaotic night, that's just going to say, who's this strict? And he came, and the plan was he'd do 3 months, and he's still there now 4 years later. But he would have said he didn't have the skills, and he's a natural, brilliant at what he does. He's not organised, he doesn't plan, but you walk in, you ask him to do something, this is what you're doing tonight, no problem. Wings it and it's done. But he would have never, other than the fact that you need to have some experience of working with young people. It was like, I'm going to count down the days until this is finished. However, so I think they all resonate with me certainly, and what volunteers would be saying around why they don't volunteer. Challenge is not getting the volunteers through the door, it's how we keep them, how we retain them, and how we support them. So, I've touched on already how quite a lot of the challenges can be when a role isn't defined and we don't understand what it is. A few questions to ask ourselves is, do we always have the right volunteers? And is it okay to say no? Because I think the biggest challenge when I'm dealing with conflict one is where we can't have the difficult conversation. And sometimes we would just, well, they've asked to volunteer, so we've got to have them. I think being clear about what the role consists and having check-ins, having review points. Now, the problem you can't always manage every single volunteer, but it's how we put in a structure to, is it going for you? How's it going for you? What support would you need? So, do we have to how are we failing our volunteers in that we've not necessarily got the right support model? So what we're going to do now is just talk to yourselves of, in your group or in your church, do we all support by ourselves, but do we have structured support? Do the volunteers that you work with, do you think they would say, well, there's a support network, I know what I'm doing? So just 2 minutes between yourselves.
No.
Very much supported. Oh yeah. Yeah. When if you've got the right event, but we like is you always think of people when they ask you why you were right. But I find it a lot about you know, you're very caring, I think. You're very caring. Yeah.
But yeah, there's always a lot for everything. Yeah. You know, they say, if you can't do this, can you let me know when I can step up to you? Yeah. You know, which is good. Because at one time, I had so many volunteers, I did have to turn people away. Because it was ridiculous. I had about 20 volunteers. And that was ridiculous.
Because like they come to white they are always that's the way Oh, no.
You still got to do a lot, but you've got to give them that extra as well.
Some extra.
Are we happy to feedback? I'm going to pick on the people I didn't ask before now. So you guys at the back there, what was your discussion? Should you think in your setting, safe space to talk here? Do you think there's the support for volunteers?
I think one of the things that came clear to me, so I'm thinking about the volunteers that I recruit, is this whole thing about clarity and defining exactly what they do. Now I sort of know what they do, which isn't a good start, is it? So I need to understand and be able to break it down very, very clearly so that I fully understand what it is that they're signing up to, and within that, where do they fit, and have that conversation with them. So I think being clear.
And that is as simple, like, we think we are clear, so for at the company I volunteer in, we have about 80 young people on a Monday night, and we have a big building, but even though we have a big building, it's like a military operation to move around because we're staggered in the rooms we use. And we call him a captain, but that's the leader who's sort of in charge of everything. And I'd had a captain who'd been very much of, you do that section, what help do you need? And then we had a new captain come in, and we always a bit, oh, we don't really do much, he just walks around. And but he was very engaged with the parents, he'd come in and see, and then after a period of time, he was like, there's lots going on, he said, but I think everyone's duplicating, and he was very much, and he gave everyone specific bullet point roles, and some people were like, I've been doing this for 10 years, what's he doing telling me this? But it was very much understanding of we needed someone to sort of join the dots together, because I think I find this in the workplace. I think I've been really clear, because in my head I know what I want, but it's very much around, this is what my thinking is, this is what I want to do. Do you think you could do this? How would you do it? Because we will always want people to do it the way we see it. So it's very much around passing that baton on. This is what I'm thinking. How would you do this? Because we all think, one thing we did on some training once was, we all might know how to make a spaghetti bolognese, but we all might make it our own different way. And ultimately, do we still get a nice bolognese at the end, but people might do it differently. So I think we think we're clear, but we're all so busy. And you think, I've got volunteer, they can do that, right, that's job done. But it's to prevent that. You guys here, you better check, do you think support, what's the most important support we should be looking at?
The problem that we have is there's so few of us, and we're all flat out just volunteering, that we haven't got, like you say, that one person who's able to go around and be quite structured in kind of giving bullet points and coming up with job descriptions, for want of better words. Do you know what I mean? Like with Messy Church, that's your job, that's your job, that's your job. Bang, we're all, you're in, like, and then there's not a whole lot of time for kind of feedback or constructive criticism and that kind of stuff. So there's not that kind of structure in place for growth and sharpening yourselves and that, like,
Because one of the things we were finding is a bit of divide between the younger leaders and the older leaders. Because the older leaders had been doing, and when I say it was different, it wasn't necessarily older in age, I mean older and been there longer. And it was very much like, well, they were like a drilled operation about what they needed to do. And then they seen all the young ones arrive, and they spend on the phone, they're watching videos, we're getting all these chairs out and they're still there. And it was very much, Phil was like, well, nobody asked to get the chairs out. And it's remembering, we've done some research recently with Youthscape, which is going to be published later in the year. And they are very different. The younger generation, they need to be told, this is what I need you to do. And I have a young man who helps me run the 8 to 11-year-olds. He's daft as a brush, but if I have to text him, can you do this, this and this, he'll do it. But if I didn't do that, and then other people say, well, you just need to leave him to make the mistakes, but I think it's breaking down the jobs, because there's so many. It's how can we do that? So anybody else want to say anything around that element about support?
You need to make someone, give people a safe place to be able to come in and say, look, I'm tired, or I've been doing this long, I want to do something, but I can't do this any longer.
And the lady who I was talking about with the truck, she'd always historically done the church weekends cooking, and she'd seen it as a failure because she couldn't really do that anymore. So it was finding the right role for her. Inspire. How do we inspire? Well, we all need to be inspired, and our young people inspire us. But I'll articulate that. I promise you, those young people there were not set up to say them things about the leaders. And I had leaders. The leaders of them young people didn't see the videos and they were in tears. It's like, he's a nightmare. He's never told me. He's never told me that The girl who's the best experience of my life going to camp, she'd moan every single night because the showers have spiders in it, and you were like, I'm never camping again. And then but she has, and she was at the last camp we've done. So I think we need to inspire each other, because you shouldn't have to need HQ to come in to do a video to ask the young people about what to do. You're all doing the same jobs, but how many times do we sit down and say, we've done a really good job here, that's gone really bad, but we've done really well, we've done really well at it. And I'm a real strong believer, if we're doing an event, Rachel's done the event today with her colleagues, what are the 2 or 3 things we want to achieve? And then we need to, right, let's celebrate that. So we shouldn't be waiting 20 years to get a certificate in the post from HQ to thank them. So we've done a lot. We did something really simple. We sent a survey to parents to say, what would you like to say as a parent to thank your volunteers? And it was all around the big help out, around the coronation. And we did some slides, videos that all went out online. And leaders were so happy that, oh, our name's there. So there's little things we can do, check-ins. My captain is great. At the end of the night, let's just come together, how have we gone? What's been good, what's been bad? We need to create a culture where someone can say, I really struggled with that. Because I think we try and say, we did it, it's done. And you might go home and think, tonight I'm not doing that again. They've asked me again to do this, and I'm not doing it again. And then my husband will go, oh, you're doing it again. So, we can say, I didn't think this went right. So we don't like difficult chats, but sometimes that's what we need. How do we keep people engaged? We work with young people so that they belong somewhere, but we belong in that place also. So there is gives, but they are gets. And sometimes it's not bad to focus on what we get out of it. And there's opportunities we can get in volunteering that we wouldn't necessarily get anywhere else, but we need to take the time to celebrate and thank what we do. One thing we have pushed for the last 2 years is around quality. The challenges of being such an older organisation of 140 years is that people have preconceived conceptions about what you do. And people have been volunteer leaders within the church for many, many years, but we can always evolve and look how we can support. So one thing we have done is invested greatly in our programme activities. So if you've managed to see the stall downstairs, if not, there is some packs left. But for an example, we just expected our volunteers to do 2 days training and then go off and change the world. And that was as much support as they got. So our whole philosophy is now around how can we support equipped volunteers to deliver a quality programme. We want our young people to go into any BBGA group and they have the same quality. And when it's not the quality, it impacts. So we started that by doing CPD, to some people's horror. How dare you ask me to redo my training? I did it in 1970 and I was top of the class. So we brought in e-learning. Some of it's compulsory, the majority of it's not. And it's interesting that the compulsory ones they've done, but the voluntary stuff they've not. How to plan a programme and keep it current. So these are part of our new program. It's not very new now, it's a couple of years old program. These are all digital and online, but the aim is to make it as easy as possible for the volunteer. So although these are cards, these are now old school, because now everyone just wants it virtually on an iPad. So we used to send these physical cards out every term with a full term programme. Now that's not, you've not got to follow that by a syllabus. You might think, oh, that's not really for my young people, or you might only do part of it. But by providing a clear option, it makes the volunteer experience much easier. And what we do is we have monthly webinars about each of the programme cards, where other volunteers come on and talk about what they're doing. When we do a full term, we do a termly webinar about where it is. We're doing some work now around Generation Alpha. They age 10 and plus have never known the world. From age 10, they've never known the world about an iPad. So when we're saying why they all got the phones, they all have the phones at school now. So what do we change to equip us to understand. So there'll be some research published in the next couple of months that we've done jointly with Youthscape, and it is who are the young people we're working with now. And they quote, generation sensible. How do they want us to communicate? I had one young leader on the Young Leaders Weekend in October who said, don't send me an email, I've got 15,000 and that's only this year. So it's the different ways of how we want to make it as easy for our volunteers as possible. So we do various webinars, the training. We want to bring volunteers together virtually because we can do that and face to face. We have an online system for all our records, and that's embracing more since the pandemic is because people more want to do it in that sense, so that it's not loads of paperwork, so cutting down the roles. So unfortunately, after the end of the session, I'm not giving you a real clear of this is how we inspire, but we do all inspire each other. So we need to have some of the passion that the young people had on the video of why people volunteer, and go back to our churches and be really clear to our volunteers that they're valued, and we constantly need to reinforce that. So there's one quick video at the end, which is what was a thank you to our volunteers around the Big Help Out, and it's literally a minute, so it won't take too long.
I joined BB when I was 15 years old, but when I became 18 I became a leader, and it's been that way ever since.
We've got a very diverse bunch of leaders here, and I think that's great. I think if we were all the same person, then it wouldn't be fun.
I feel like my job as a young leader is to make sure everyone has a good time.
What I feel I bring to the Boys Brigade is new fun ideas that the young people want, and as a young leader I can provide because we connect more on a level.
Being a leader is a big responsibility, but it's a chance to give something back to the young people and to hopefully encourage them to take on similar roles themselves in the future.
The leaders at Boys Brigade are very welcoming, and whenever you have a problem you can go speak to them, it'll get sorted.
I think the leaders are very kind and helpful.
They're funny, nice.
The leaders help me to grow and know other people.
There's always a good bit of banter with them really, so we always have a laugh.
The leaders are all really great and supportive. The leaders are just really happy and always making you feel like you belong here.
I think I would stay on as a leader, just because seeing the youngsters grow up from once I first started, like all the way to now, I feel like that's what our leaders has been given, watching me grow up from when I was young. I'd like to get that experience.
I do love the idea of being able to sort of lead some of these kind of things and the games and the activities that we do every week.
So BB's helped me develop myself as a person as well, and to help do that to other people.
I think I've enjoyed being a leader because I can help other young guys in a similar position to me, not being very confident at the start, and getting them to have new experiences as well.
So hopefully there is some inspiration there for me to go away with, but it's not an easy job, and I wish you all the luck and the prayers in the world. Anyone who wants to ask any questions, we've run a little bit over, come and grab me, I'll still be about up here, and if you want any of the packs, they are downstairs. But being someone who works with lots of volunteers, I think we need to all we are very lucky as a nation where we do have a very commitment to give back, because that's not the same everywhere. So I hope you found that useful. Thank you.